What is up, my fellow Middle-earthians? Paradox 2767 here, squeezed like an utter sausage into my wife's Lord of the Rings shirt. I apologize for any midriff that might distract during the video. And in fact, I'm gonna throw on a sweater so I feel less subconscious. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about the War of the Rohirrim movie that just came out. Me and my wife caught the 10:30 showing last night at the theater and learned a little bit about that lore in the process. I wanted to talk about that a little bit today and use the whole film as a springboard to talk more generally about the fantasy genre lately. So, spoilers ahead. I'm gonna kind of quickly go through the top 3 best and worst parts about that film to me personally, and I want to know what you guys' thoughts are. I'll start with the bad news first. So, the old shield maiden lady, in my opinion, should have been killed off when she was trying to rescue our hero Hera from the Wild Men Fortress. So, it's relatively early on in the film. Hera gets chased off and separated from her friends by that rabid Oliphant, and then she gets taken prisoner. In my opinion, and I think my wife's as well, it would have been much better for her to use that as an opportunity to show her cunning and basically get out of that scenario herself instead of having to be rescued by her cousin, the shield maiden, and then the little chubby squire kid. And that kind of interaction leans into 2 of the worst parts about this movie. So the shield maiden, I feel like, had too much plot armor. Like, she looked like she was 60, 65, rescues Hera, jumps out of like a 4-story building, lands on her feet, jumps on a horse and rides off to the sunset. There's a couple more interactions where she's taking part in battles and it completely isn't getting cut down. The reason I have a problem with that part in particular is because it's shield maiden versus wolf. Wolves are a big bad in this movie, and he's supposed to be kind of like a wild, rough and tumble leader of this band of evil wild men, and I wanted him to take her out in that scene. That's how I would have done that differently, because it's an opportunity to show, okay, Wolf is kind of a force to be reckoned with. It's not a completely physically fit warrior guy getting bettered by a has-been shield maiden lady. If the shield maiden was drawn to be jacked, and she's obviously kept up on her exercises throughout the years, that's one thing, but she's just shown to be like a normal ass old lady with a shield. So to me, it kind of nerfs the villain there, where it's like he can't even take out the shield maiden chick. What's going on? In general, Wolf isn't shown to do anything too badass at all. The only kills he makes are, he does a ranged attack once, and then he does some cheap shots where he's slitting dudes' throats with his little dagger, but outside of that, he's not really shown to be a big crazy warrior type in any respect. And that is that second point, is that the villain didn't come off as foreboding or threatening enough to me. Now, my wife did say, granted, he's not supposed to be the best leader, clearly, because he's not taking his counsel's advice throughout the movie, and that's kind of his downfall, is overconfident and basically cocky. But at the same time, I was telling her, listen, if you told me right now you need to have a sword fight with, and you can pick who you're gonna fight, Wolf, Hera, or the shield maiden, right? In my head, the last person I should pick is Wolf. But instead, the first person I go to, I guess I gotta do Wolf, because the shield maiden was better than him in hand-to-hand combat. The hero was better at him than at hand-to-hand combat, so yeah, I'll fight Wolf. And that's not how I want to feel about my villains, because if you say, Luke, Obi-Wan, or Darth Vader, fight one, the last one I'm going to pick is Darth Vader, because he took out Obi-Wan, he cut off Luke's hand, and that's how I like my villains. I like him to be like, oh shit, watch out, here comes Wolf. Oh no, Big Bad Wolf, you were totally fucked. And I did not feel that with him. So those are the 2 main points. Shield Maiden's OP, Wolf is nerfed, and then the last point is in general kind of nitpicky, but when they're evacuating Helm's Deep because of the coming Wildman attack, ended up not making a damn difference, because Hera's cousin comes in with her backup Rohirrim or whatever the hell. My wife knows the lore and the lingo way better than me, but basically cousin comes in, saves the day anyway. So evac or not, those guys would have been fine. In fact, I was thinking to myself, as they're evacuating Helm's Deep and slipping behind the wild men to run out into the snowy fields, as the wild men are being driven back, aren't they just gonna run into the random starving Rohirrim people anyway, hack them to pieces out of anger? But anyway, those are the main 3 weaknesses. But that's not to say it's a bad movie. I actually did enjoy myself during this movie. I got sick off of theater popcorn, but that's a small price to pay. I want to talk about the 3 best things, and then I'm going to use that as that springboard into talking about fantasy these days in general. One of the best things is the horse aesthetic was very good. I know it seems like such a small little plus to this movie, but if you're looking at the costuming and the palace, all these little details, they crammed horse motifs and horse little imagery. There's horses all over the damn place when we're at the Rohirrim Kingdom, so that made good sense. And all that to say, aesthetically, I feel like they were doing a good job of world building there. It didn't look like we're in any old random kingdom. No, this is the Horse Riders Kingdom, and you can tell because of that. I also thought that the Hammerhand family was pretty lit, and they all got really dope ends. So, like I said, spoilers, but her 2 brothers, one gets shot in the neck, which is pretty badass, after he took down the giant Oliphant himself with a battle axe. So that whole thing was okay, he's a badass. Her other brother, the younger brother, his horse is a little older, and you hear about that earlier in the movie. And then as he's trying to pedal away from the wild men, the horse just can't keep up. So he ends up being captured and just having his throat cut. That was pretty lit. And then the most badass ending is definitely Helm Hammerhand. So like when I think of Helm's Deep and I'm like, oh yeah, it's named after Helm, like canonically or whatever, Helm is a badass. And he goes out like fighting in the middle of a snowstorm and just like gets frozen into place. That whole thing is pretty dope. So I really like the Hammerhand family. And then last but not least, of course, Hera. And that gets into the other good part about this movie. She was not at all overdone. And honestly, when you hear people calling her like a girl boss and all that shit, like girl bosses exist in media. Like the eye rolly kind of like can do no wrong and is super strong, is better than all the men even though she hasn't had a day of training. That type of girl bossy bullshit. That doesn't happen here. So when people say that about her, I don't think they've seen the movie. Not too many reviewers I've seen, but some of them are kind of leaning into that. And it's just like kind of divisive and not accurate. It's just not accurate, okay? Like I'm not defending the trope at all. Like girl bosses can be annoying, but I'm just saying it's just not the case here. I think in the trailer she's doing like a lot of crazy swordplay. I don't even know where they pulled that footage from. Like I don't remember her doing almost any like crazy battle sequences or anything, and nothing felt unearned or unrealistic. There's enough flashbacks of her training with swords for her to like understand her way around a hilt of a sword or whatever. Nothing in the movie is like, how the hell did she end up doing that? She's not the one who's jumping up on Oliphants and stabbing him in the brain. She's not the one who's like leading the charge into battle. She doesn't even wear any armor. If anything, she's underutilized as like a female hero. I was expecting her to be more badass. All that to say, it's a plus because it's not overdone. My wife is like, dude, they're probably very cautious because I think there's a lot of fantasy fans that are just like, oh, female lead, here we go, I caught you, you're an asshole, you made it way too strong. Like people are so stoked to do that these days. I think that they played their cards very conservatively. You can bitch about this movie if you want, but you're not going to bitch about the fact that we made her overpowerful. And I think like the director or one of the makers of this movie, in the same interview she said we're not going to ruin Tolkien's books, which is, it's true, you're not going to mess it up with a single like, it's basically a fanfic or it's like a building off of a small addendum of the Lord of the Rings books. She also says it's not really woke, and it really isn't. I mean, the Shield Maiden is overpowered and has plot armor, but so does like the chubby little boy they hang out with have plot armor, and it's sort of like, well, they're female, male, they both have plot armor, they're both like chubby and annoying. I don't like either of them, but it's not like I'm getting anything crammed down my throat with this movie in any respect. That's why I kind of want to talk about fantasy in general right now, because I feel like as soon as a fantasy project comes out, people will jump down its throat if there's anything in the way of like a strong female lead or diversity or anything like that. And I want to just digest that concept because I've been thinking and learning a lot about this sort of thing over the last couple of years when it comes to building and creating these sort of fantasy worlds. So I want to talk about that. In general, I think that the girl boss accusations are used a little too liberally, especially when it comes to original IPs. Like I said, this is almost a fanfic. Like this character, Hera, I don't think is even named in the Lord of the Rings lore at all. To me, that says they can do whatever the hell they want with this character. It kind of reminds me, I recently saw the movie Damsel with Millie Bobby Brown, and people just like shat on Damsel. I don't know if it was the mood I was in. I was house sitting and just chilling. I had like a stranger's cat on my lap, just like petting it and just hanging the hell out. So maybe that was the headspace I was in, but I thought Damsel was good. It was fun, and she's okay, girl boss, whatever, but to bitch about Damsel having a girl boss, it's like, that means you can't have any strong females at all. It's not like they're taking Bo Peep from the first Toy Story, who's just like a complete non-entity, and turning her into a badass. The character in Damsel, no one knows anything about her. Like, there's no established characterization of her being like a weak piece of shit or anything. She's just like a complete blank slate to the audience. So she can be as fucking cool or as lame as she wants to be. And just because she happens to like wield a sword, honestly, most of that movie, she gets fucking lucky. It's not like she's a titan in the battlefields or anything. You should check that movie out and come and bitch at me if I'm completely off base there. But I honestly think that was a fun movie. The CGI looked decent, at least on the TV of the house I was house sitting for. The whole situation I enjoyed. And that's all that to say, it's one thing to go ahead and say, we're gonna do a Star Wars fanfic, and now Princess Leia is gonna be this badass, double dual-wielding lightsaber motherfucker. I know this is all bullshit, but like, you know, Luke died, so she takes up his lightsaber, takes up Darth fucking Vader's lightsaber, and just starts fucking wreaking havoc on the remaining clones or whatever the fuck. That's kind of stupid because she's just a rando dame in a bikini for most of the series who happens to know her way around a blaster decently enough to survive, but she's no like lightsaber duelist fucking complete warrior chickadee. So that would be fucking dumb. If you do a new thing where it's like, okay, we're gonna do a new Star Wars project and it's well done. I heard a lot of the new stuff sucks. I can't afford streaming anyway, so I don't keep up with that very well. To me, in my opinion, if you give me a new character and you're gonna call her like, here's Kabuba, she's a brand new fucking Jedi in training and no one's ever met her before and she happens to be really good with this lightsaber. It's like, you can't overly bitch about that unless, I mean, it's one thing if they're demasculating all the men in a project and saying like, okay, no, all the men are like fucking Simpsons adults where they're just like fucking scratching like, oh, what do I do with this lightsaber? And they get fucking blasted in the head. That's one thing, but if they're not doing that, and I think that is why people bitch about the new Star Wars projects, But outside of that, it's like, bro, you can have strong females, in my fucking personal opinion, especially with original IPs. You're free to do what you want with an original IP. It's your story. When it comes to fantasy, there's a lot of emphasis and complaints focusing on race and gender swapping on characters. I can understand the umbrage people take with that because it's an existing IP that people are kind of fiddling with. One thing I've seen complaints on is how they're doing, I think, a Harry Potter TV show, and Severus Snape's character is now like a close, clean-shaven, handsome black dude. Here's the thing, when Snape was written, he was described as having the greasy, long black hair, and he was pale and all that. When you're writing Snape as a character, subconsciously or just actively, like, part of his characterization is the color of his skin. To just swap him out and say he's the exact same person but now he's black is sort of saying there's absolutely no difference in the life experiences and things of like a black professor at Hogwarts and a white professor at Hogwarts. I get it's fantasy, but the fact is you wrote Snape for an earthen audience and you wrote him with this traits in mind. And to just gender or race swap is to say, it actually doesn't matter. If you're black, if you're white, you're gonna have the exact same experience. I mean, you have the same value as a person. If you're black, white, Hispanic, male, female, it doesn't matter. But I'm saying as a character, like, I think that a black or a white villain, they're gonna come at a problem potentially differently. I mean, maybe this sounds absolutely insane, but I feel like the part of who a character is like their gender, their race, and all of it. Tell me if I'm off base there, dude. Like, come and bitch at me right now if you think I'm completely insane. But I just feel like you're almost belittling the racial differences by just being colorblind or something. It's like, you can't just do that when it comes to existing characters, in my personal opinion. If it's an original IP, however, just because you have people of color in it or strong women doesn't mean it's automatically bullshit. I was just rewatching Conan, bro. I love this fucking movie. And I think they're gonna do a new one, dude. I'm gonna see that movie so hard. I gotta see the sequel, which apparently sucks. But still, Conan the Barbarian, dude. It's lit. It's like 1982. No one's bitching about this being woke. I mean, the dude is just going around. He's like king of rape and pillage. Like, he's just like a big fucking brutish, like, complete bastard. Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's so fucking entertaining. And then the bad guy in this is James Earl Jones. So it's a fantasy land that takes place in like wherever the fuck the barbers were hanging out because he's a barbarian or whatever. It's all fantasy because there's like magic bullshit happening. The only black guy in the realm is James Earl Jones, and he's like the villain who turns into a snake, and he's fucking awesome. The thing is, no one's bitching about how the fuck did this black guy get into Scandinavia or wherever the fuck we are. That's fucking stupid, man. Conan the Barbarian from 1982 went woke. Fuck Conan. And this chick here, she holds a fucking sword and she swings it around. Fucking woke bullshit. No, dude, no one's saying that. You can't just jump down the throat of every fantasy thing just because there's a fucking black person. You know, like, just relax. You can do what you want and you can be successful just like Conan was. And you don't have to be like, oh shit, everyone has to be white because, you know, that's how it would have been if Scandinavians were putting together a fucking Conan movie or whatever. It doesn't, it's all kind of bullshit. That's a stupid argument. So Conan's not an original IP. Obviously it has like comics that date back to the 1930s or something. But I mean, I don't know. Conan the movie is like it's an adaptation. It's almost like the War of the Rohirrim thing. Like, no one knows Hera's fucking name anyway. So you can do what you want. It's a little bit more malleable. I'm saying, like, it's different if you take Gimli and say now he's a fucking trans black woman. And like, I get that people are gonna bitch about that because part of his characterization is being like this burly fucking red bearded fuck. So like that, it's two different things. I hope I'm like making those two separate things in my mind clear enough to the camera here. Now, another thing I want to talk about is as a creator of some of this shit. So I put out this series, The Zodiac Dozen. And by the way, like, this is not an advertisement because these are the only 2 of the 12 that I even fucking own in my house. Like, I'm not telling you need to go buy these, but when I wrote these books, there's 12 of them and they each follow a different character. This is the main character of book 1, Aaron. He's half Potawatomi, American Indian, half white, and that's part of his characterization, that's part of his life outlook. But in the next book, I focus on a completely different character named Victoria, and she's just like this pale white chick born and raised in the south side of Milwaukee, and her experiences are different, and so we're looking at the world now through her lens for book 2, and book 3 takes on a new character. All that to say, listen, I'm a straight white fucking writer, but I wasn't about to say we're gonna take 12 different perspectives for this whole Zodiac Dozen series. Because of me being straight white, all of my characters are gonna be straight white. Like, how fucking boring would that be? So I've got black characters, Hispanic characters. For one, I just need that because otherwise everyone looks the fucking same. There's a reason that a lot of movies don't just have a bunch of straight white dudes with fucking clean shaved faces. Like, no one would know what the fuck is going on. It's like watching The Departed and everyone looks the same. So part of it is I write these characters with different genders and races and like sexual identities and everything. I wasn't trying to be like a fucking shill and virtue signal. Like, look at the rest of my videos. The last thing I want to fucking do is make everyone think I'm like a big fucking holier than thou whatever. I did that for one to keep a difference in the characters in my head, to give a little diversity and a little intrigue to those fucking scenarios that I was writing. And for 2, honestly, it's like, okay, I'm not literally just gonna go to fucking fucking schools and talk about the book, because it's a fucking chapter book that's for middle schoolers basically, I didn't go around the schools and just talk to white kids. I'm talking to everybody. And honestly, there's more potential for a Hispanic middle schooler to enjoy book 4 most of all or whatever, because that character, Candace, is a Hispanic middle school girl. And I wanted the audience to feel like, oh shit, that's pretty cool because I'm kind of like this character. So you'll see scenes in like the new Star Wars projects, right? Like the diversity is fucking crazy. There's an Asian chick in space. My fucking mind is blown. Well, listen, okay, I get maybe they're virtual signaling shills. I'm not fucking sure, but at least some of this, when people are writing this sort of fucking projects, is like, dude, I want the audience to be able to relate to it. And it's not just a fucking straight white audience I'm writing to. So like, trust me, I am not about like making sure everyone knows how fucking liberal I am. That's the last thing I want to fucking do in my life. I'm just letting you know, like, there's reasons to put black fucking characters in projects besides just letting everybody know that you're like with the fucking cause or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Since I wrote those projects, my viewpoint is opened up a little bit when it comes to, oh, black person movie, that must mean this, and this. Like, no, you kind of have to throw away some of those fucking assumptions. There's a million reasons to have a person of color or a fucking female or a trans person or whatever in your story outside of just virtual signaling or whatever. And then the one last thing I want to talk about is, so me and my wife recently finished filming on our next fucking film project thing, and we needed a voice actress from Ireland. So we sent out a casting call through a school over in Dublin, and we got almost 20 responses back from all these different Irish voice actresses. And we had a complete blind review of all of the audio files they sent in, because everyone had to read a couple different lines from the script. Because they're playing like an AI interface, so we really just need the voice, not the acting at all. So they're going to be able to send all their lines in remotely from Ireland, and then we're going to like input it into the video after. We went ahead and completely like objectively went from voice to voice, knocking them out one at a time, saying that doesn't really quite fit our character. That's our cats. That doesn't quite fit the character. Oh, this one's a little too girlish. Oh, this one's a little too whatever sounding. And then we finally boiled it down. We got our actress, and she's awesome, and she's very nice, and we're really excited to work with it. And then afterwards, we were like, oh, that's funny, because we were looking through her headshots and her application and everything, and she's half Irish, half Caribbean. Like, oh, that's interesting. Like, haha, that'll like go over well with American audiences nowadays. Maybe not know there's like some diversity in the cast besides my straight white ass. And then we were like, oh, you know, that's actually kind of interesting, because I'm pretty sure she was like one of the, if not the only person of color to submit it all, and she won just because of her talent. You know, like she was actually the best hire. I just want to put this into your mind as you're thinking through these things sometimes. If you're one of these people that when you see a little diversity in some of the film projects that come out nowadays, and your instinct is to just be like, that's bullshit, man. They just DEI, that's all bullshit. Some of that shit is true. Like Disney might be virtual signaling and DEI hiring the shit out of fucking Snow White or whatever. Some of that's true, but that's not always the case. So if you take all of that energy and your brain's like exploding with blood vessels because like, holy shit, DEI hire, there's a person of color in a movie, just take a deep breath, because there's a lot of fucking reasons. Like just, oh, happen to be the most talented actress. Oh, just happen to want to speak to an audience outside of just like the straight man, whatever. That happens sometimes without some big old fucking agenda. So anyway, all of that to say, I liked Lord of the Rings okay. I'd probably give it a solid 6 out of 10. And I got a lot of these feelings about the fantasy genre in general building up inside of me. So I just had to spill them out. Just like I'm spilling out of this shirt, baby. Ugh. So if you got this point in the video, thank you again for watching. And if I decide to talk about some more dumb bullshit, you'll be the first to know about it.